My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. From the fig tree, learn its lesson. Jesus, you tell us that in today's Gospel. Or in a more literal translation from the Greek, from the fig tree, learn the parable. Well, Jesus, what is the lesson you want us to learn from the fig tree? In what way is this tree a parable for us? Well, one lesson I learned from the fig tree in preparing this meditation is how it's pollinated. And it really is quite remarkable. Fig trees are found in warmer climes, and they are pollinated by special types of wasps, not just any wasp, but a fig wasp, which crawl their way through a tiny hole in the fruit to reach the centre where the flower hides. Female wasps lay a bunch of eggs inside. These then hatch, mate, and the males later tunnel their way out of the fig. The females then follow, taking both their eggs and some pollen with them to transplant into other figs. But as the gap which the original wasps crawl through to reach the fig flowers is so tiny, they usually lose their wings in the process, which is effectively the end of them. So they basically sacrifice themselves, of course without knowing it, to make the figs sweet. And this made me think of all those sacrifices which our parents make for us. They give up so many opportunities, in a spiritual sense, losing their wings, so as to make our lives better and sweeter. Now, of course, if our mum or dad were listening to this with us, they would say that it's a joyful sacrifice. That yes, they lose wings in a sense, they lose opportunities. Of course they do. A mum with small children can't suddenly say to her husband, well, look, honey, I'm just off for a month on an expedition down the Amazon. Can you look after the kids for the next month? And of course, a husband shouldn't say that to his wife either. Yes, we have to make sacrifices. That's the very nature of love. But of course, through love, we also develop wings of love. Indeed, the best wings are the wings of love, which enable us to fly high to the heights of God's love. Jesus, you most showed us this love in sacrificing yourself for us on the cross. So my friend, the next time you feel annoyed with mum or dad, well, think of all the sacrifices they make for you. Isn't it time that you started to make a few sacrifices yourself? For let me tell you, without sacrifice, there is no love. In today's readings, the Church is trying to prepare us for next Sunday's great feast of Christ the King. Every year we relive in the Church the whole of history, from the beginning of creation to the end of time, when Jesus will come again, finally, definitively, as King, to judge all humanity and bring about his visible, glorious rule. This is a fact. Jesus, we want to be ready for your coming. When will it be? Well, we shouldn't even try to find out. We will never know. And the amazing thing is that even Jesus doesn't know. The prophet Daniel, from whom we read in the first reading, seemed to receive a glimpse not only of this second coming, but also of the events which would precede it. Now, we don't know much about the end of time, but we do know that it will be preceded by enormous upheavals. In this text, a heavenly figure tells Daniel that there is going to be a time of great distress, unparalleled since nations first came into existence. We can read this and it might just pass over us, but the description is very strong and even frightening. And then Jesus, in the Gospel, you make it even stronger. At the end of time, you tell us, after that time of distress, the sun will be darkened, the moon will lose its brightness, the stars will come falling from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. After this, you say, Jesus, those who are sleeping, in other words, the dead, will awake, will rise again, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting disgrace. Well, that is frightening. Jesus, we want to be among those who arise to everlasting life, not those that arise to everlasting shame. But if we are to arise to this life, we need to be faithful to God and struggle to be faithful. And when will this happen? Well, again, we don't know. Jesus, even you don't know. You tell us that you don't know. Now, I'm sure here you're talking according to your human nature, because as God, you would know. You tell us, as for that day or hour, nobody knows it, neither the angels of heaven, nor the Son, no one but the Father. In Luke's Gospel, Jesus compares the end of time to the floods in the days of Noah. Suddenly, without warning, the flood started. People were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. Why does the church give us this tiny but this very scary glimpse of the end times? Is it to terrify us? Is it to give us nightmares? No. It does so that we may know where to seek support and strength, where to stand when the whole world is shaken, so that then we as Christians will stand firm. And in many ways that those shakes, those tremors have begun already. So even now we need to stand firm on the rock, the foundation of Christ. We read in Scripture, when that time comes, your own people will be spared, all those whose names are written in the book. Well, what is this book? Is it a literal book of paper or some sort of manuscript? No. We read about it in the book of Revelation. In fact, there are 6 references there to the book of life. We read, for example, also another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged by what was written in the books, by what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead in them. And all were judged by what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. This book is a metaphor. God doesn't need a literal book, but he keeps a record of our good and bad actions. He knows them. Are our names in the book of life? They will be if we've sought true life, not death. Good deeds lead to life. Bad deeds lead to death. Again, we read in Scripture, this time from St. Paul, for if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. Now, of course, we're all going to die, also because we've all sinned. But here St. Paul is talking of eternal death. The deeds of the flesh lead to eternal death. Our world is more and more interested in the flesh and less interested in the spirit, in higher things. This also leads to disregard of the sick and the elderly because their flesh is not attractive. Are we over-concerned about the flesh, how we look, our health? This could lead to impurity, to pornography, but also to vanity, for example, an excessive concern to build up our body. People find time to do weight training, but not to pray. Probably, although you never know, we won't be there to see the second coming of Christ. Please God, we'll see it from heaven. We certainly don't want to learn about it in terror in hell. But in a sense, the end times are the now times. There are always world upheavals, nations at war with each other, cosmic disasters. If we seek the right foundations now, we will stand firm now. And when Jesus does come again, we will watch his coming from heaven or earth with our heads erect. Again, Jesus, your words. Now when these things begin to take place, look up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. We need to learn from these readings where to place our feet. No sensible person places his or her feet on shifting sand or crumbly mud. A sensible person places their feet on solid rock. Nothing created, nothing on earth or in the solar system will stand firm at the end of time. Not even Mars with its fire and its flames. The sun, the moon, the stars, they will all lose their brightness. And all those suns, those moons, those stars we seek on earth, glory, success, fame, wealth, influence, all these will fade and disappear. Jesus, you tell us, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Why put our hope in things that will pass away? And here, Jesus, you give us a clue, and more than a clue, as to what to hold on to. Your word, your truth, your teaching, which comes to us in the church, in Scripture, and in our conscience. Hold on to that, not to anything else. Anything else is a straw you clutch at as you fall down a mountainside. It will come away in your hand, and you will plunge to destruction. The first reading gives us another tip to make sure that we are among those rising to everlasting life, to be learned and to instruct in virtue. The learned will shine as brightly as the vault of heaven, and those who have instructed many in virtue, as bright as stars for all eternity. To be learned isn't just reading many books or to be the world expert in whatever, I don't know, macroeconomics or science or whatever. To be learned, yes, is to read well, to learn about our faith, to study in school, but also, as the text says, to instruct many in virtue. What a wonderful thing to do, to instruct in virtue. Can you instruct your friends in virtue, teaching others about good life, sharing your faith with others? Of course, parents very much instruct in virtue. What a wonderful thing to instruct in virtue. Our Lady is invoked as seat of wisdom. True wisdom is to build on rock, to base our lives on God's words, to aim at instruction and virtue, and to instruct others, not to base ourselves on created things which will pass away. Holy Mother, we ask you to teach us that wisdom again and again, if necessary repeating it to us many times, as mothers often do with their little children. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, St. Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.